The other programs in this series begin with a story that helps us to explore the connection between ecology and spirituality. In this program, though, we save the story until last and begin instead with reflections from Jay McDaniel about our fellow creatures on this earth. He shares his feelings about animals and the important part they play in connecting us to all of creation.
To imagine a God who enters into covenant not only with people, but with all creatures of the flesh. Now that's a God I can live into and from and trustful of. Quite honestly, I loved my dogs. Always did, still do. And to pet them, to look them in the eye, to take care of them, to have them love you, they were part of my nourishment as a child. I really did not learn from church that it was all right to honor those as spiritual guides. Nonetheless, they functioned as soul nourishers. And my guess is that's the case with a lot of people. I'm kind of on a campaign against thinking that ecological theology has only to do with rainforests and topsoil and water pollution and that kind of thing. It has also to do with what we do to the least of these in the particular. And animals are our closest biological and spiritual kin. I think the Bible well recognizes this in the Genesis creation story. People really need to know what is happening to animals in industrial agriculture. They really need to know that hogs are confined in small cages for much of their lives, and that violates their own needs for mobility. They really need to look at what happens to chickens penned into cages, who have a need to dust bathe, who have a need to walk around, who have a need to establish a natural pecking order, even though there's violence there. That's part of who they are in their vitality, that's frustrated when they are put in cages just to lay eggs for us to have scrambled eggs for breakfast. They really need to know the conditions in the feedlots, how the cattle are packed together and fattened prior to slaughter. At least we can ask the question, did they receive a decent life? What does it mean to say that you or I am made in the image of God? I believe that that properly means that emerging out of the very creative dust of creation, cousin to the chimpanzee, sister to the wolf. Yes, you know, we're evolutionary creatures through and through, that through a combination of divine grace and creative chance, we are a species that has a unique opportunity to mirror the love at the heart of creation in a way unparalleled on any other dimension of the planet. Birds can fly much better than human beings. Birds probably don't sin at all, but if they do sin, it's much less disastrous than human sin. But the other side of our sinfulness is our capacity to extend the boundaries of care and love so deeply and so richly that we truly mirror, image the very nature of the God revealed in Jesus. And the God revealed in Jesus is a God of pure grace and limitless love. Is there a creature on the planet whose heart can so be opened to be a vessel for that love? I think we are that creature.
The basic premise of this series has been that the ecological crisis is, at heart, a spiritual crisis. With the Church's double role of addressing spiritual needs and acting as a change agent, what does it have to offer in the face of this crisis? We now hear responses to that question, and then we see a story about one church's effort to love the earth. May their celebration become our celebration.
When I was at the Earth Summit in Rio, I was living in a house on a hill, and you know, Rio de Janeiro is these mountains in the middle of it. And where it used to be a scene of utter beauty. The mountain's been carved up, developed, roads have been cut through it, and most disturbing of all, there's tens of thousands of people living in favelas, in shacks made of garbage on the mountain. The first species to live in its own garbage, the human race, in many parts of the world. But here I was in Rio at the Earth Summit, and around this mountain there were at least 100,000 people living in the debris and waste product of society. And on top of the mountain, when I looked up, there was this amazing statue of Christ. I don't know how high it was, but it overlooks all of Rio. And it lights up at night. And so night and day I would stare at it, and I suddenly had this revelation that Christ was at the Earth Summit. The Earth Summit was the mountain that I was standing on, and that the idea of an earth theology parallel to liberation theology came to me, because obviously the mountain was being destroyed, and destroyed humanity was living in garbage on the mountain. The true faith is always manifest in the poor and in the marginal, never in the establishment. And so my hope is that the churches will awaken and get involved. If they don't, the emergence of a new spiritual consciousness will happen outside the churches and temples anyway.